Hello and welcome to Business 360. I'm Archana Solanki. Here are the headlines we are tracking this evening. India accuses Pakistan of violating the ceasefire at the line of control for the fourth straight day. Indian Army says it responded swiftly and effectively. Defence Minister Rajnath Singh to brief Prime Minister Narendra Modi. Sensex and Nifty reclaim Friday's losses to hit a 4-month high. Nifty moves back above 24,300. Reliance Industries contributes nearly 40% to Nifty's gains. M&M expands its commercial vehicle portfolio, will acquire 59% stake in SML Isuzu for 555 crore rupees. M&M will make an open offer to acquire another 26% at over 1,550 rupees a share. Maruti Suzuki chairman R.C. Bhargava says 88% of Indian households cannot afford to buy even a small car, blames regulatory measures and rising commodity cost for the sharp rise in car prices in the last 5 years. A dire warning from Bajaj as China plans to curb the export of rare earth magnets. Bajaj says the entire electric vehicle industry in India will come to a grinding halt if China halts the exports. That's a money control exclusive. Government likely to allow Chinese companies to apply for the production-linked incentive scheme for electronic components provided they partner with Indian companies. Sources say shareholding of Chinese companies in joint ventures will be restricted to 10 or 26% or 49% depending on the sensitivity of the sector.
It's happening at a great pace. So let's say that by 2028, we'll be able to travel in the bullet train.
Maharashtra Chief Minister Devendra Fadnavis promises a bullet train by 2028, staying firm on the stated target. Also targets a port and airport on the outskirts of Mumbai in 3 to 4 years, says $100 billion in infra financing has been tied up. That's an exclusive. Yemen's Houthis accuse the United States of bombing a migrant detention facility, killing 68 people. US military is yet to respond. Israeli attacks on Gaza leave 23 people dead in the last 24 hours. Donald Trump's approval ratings dip as he nears 100 days in office. As per 3 polls, Trump's rating hovers between 39% and 45%. This is the lowest 100-day rating for any US president in nearly 8 decades. Canada heads to parliamentary elections in what looks set to be a race to the finish for the incumbent Liberal Party headed by Mark Carney and the Conservative Party headed by Pierre Poilievre. Trump's tariff war and his barbs about marking Canada USA's 51st state have emerged as key election issues. Pre-poll ratings give Carney the edge. Supreme Court agrees to hear pleas seeking regulation of so-called obscene content on OTT platforms and social media. Government says content on some of the OTT platforms are not just obscene but perverse. The apex court issues notices to the centre along with Netflix, Amazon, Google, Meta, Apple, among others. The top story this evening, tensions between India and Pakistan continue to rise following the Pahalgam terror attack that killed 26 civilians. The Indian Army has accused Pakistan of violating the ceasefire at the line of control in Jammu and Kashmir for the 4th straight day. The Indian Army said that it responded swiftly and effectively after Pakistan Army posts initiated unprovoked small arms fire overnight near Kupwara and Poonch districts. Defence Minister Rajnath Singh visited Prime Minister Modi's residence to brief him about security preparedness post the attack on April 22nd. Singh had met the Chief of Defence Staff, General Anil Chauhan, yesterday. Meanwhile, search operations are still underway to track down the terrorists who perpetrated the attack on tourists in Pahalgam last Tuesday. The Jammu and Kashmir Assembly moved a resolution condemning the terror attack and expressing solidarity with the victims. During the special session, Chief Minister Omar Abdullah said he will not cite the attack to push for the restoration of statehood.
जम्मू कश्मीर की सिक्योरिटी जम्मू कश्मीर के इलेक्टेड हुकूमत की फिलहाल जिम्मेदारी नहीं है, लेकिन मैं ये मौका इस्तेमाल करके स्टेटहुड की मांग नहीं करूंगा। अब मैं किस मुंह से इस पहलगाम के वाकये को इस्तेमाल करके मरकज से कहूं कि अब मुझे स्टेटहुड दो? मैं क्या, मेरी क्या इतनी सस्ती सियासत है? मुझे क्या इन 26 लोगों के मरने की इतनी कम कदर है?
All right, on to the day's trading action. The Wall Street regained all of its Friday's losses, with the Nifty reclaiming the 24,300 mark. Reliance contributed nearly 40% to Nifty's up move. The broader markets outperformed the blue chips. Nifty Bank and Nifty Mid-Cap indices gained over 1.5%. Nigel D'Souza is here with the day's market action. Nigel.
Well, it was a good start to the week for the Nifty. The Nifty managed to pull back most of the losses that we saw on Friday and, in fact, ended towards the high end of the day. What led the Nifty higher today? You had banks as well as Reliance Industries. They were the ones that led the way. The advanced decline ratio, well, pretty much even Steven. For most of the trading session, you had high number of stocks that were advancing, but towards the end of the day, you had them coming closer to each other. The big deal that was announced over the weekend was Mahindra. They have gone ahead and they have bought stake in SML Isuzu. So the stock reactions were such that for Mahindra & Mahindra, they're increasing their market share and they have a vision to go ahead and further increase their market share in that particular segment. While for SML Isuzu, it appeared that most of those shareholders were expecting a better price, and that's why that stock didn't react very, very favorably. Look into a couple of stocks then that will give you a sense about how the economy is shaping up. One is Maruti and the other one is Ultratech. Maruti, their commentary was a little bit cautious with regard to some slowdown, but the stock price actually ignored that because it ended higher in today's trading session. Even Ultratech, the numbers were more or less in line, and they're saying there could be some kind of bouts of short-term volatility, but in the longer term, they're expecting steady growth. The other big movers today were from the BFSI space. Shriram Finance, asset quality was a bit of an issue. The growth as well, not as much as expected. So that stock pulled back more than 10% in the last two sessions. RBL Bank, some part of the street believes the worst is over. The numbers were encouraging. And Citi is quite positive on the stock. While L&T Finance Holdings, well, out there, the dispersals were weak. You had the gross NPAs that were the highest that we saw in the last 7 quarters or so. So that one came in for a hard knock. Other big winners from the broader markets, you had Sonata Software. They secured a $70 million deal. Street like that. Tejas Networks, the results were weak, and also the order book did see a bit of a downtick out there. So that's why that stock was under pressure. And Ramkrishna Forgings, well, there were discrepancies in certain inventory levels out there. So that's why that stock ended lower. What's the way ahead? All eyes are on Trump's tariffs. Can there be some negotiations that take place? That's going to be important. An eye on the border as well with regard to geopolitical issues. So we'll have to keep an eye out on that. And keep in mind, the Nifty appears it's still in a bit of a range. 23,800 to around 24,500. That appears to be the range. The Nifty Bank holds the key. That led the way today. 56,000 is the crucial resistance mark.
Right, thank you, Nigel, for that. In the commodity market, oil prices edged higher, but uncertainty over US-China trade talks kept gains in check. Concerns over global growth and fuel demand weighed on the market. The possibility of OPEC Plus boosting supply added more pressure. Meanwhile, gold prices declined by over 1% as global equity markets claw back post the sell-off last week. China's foreign ministry has reiterated that the country's president Xi Jinping and US President Donald Trump did not have a call recently. A ministry spokesperson maintained that the two countries have not had any negotiations on tariffs. President Trump's assertion was not backed by US Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent either. He said that he did not know if the US president spoke to Chinese president. The comments come in response to Trump's claim in an interview with Time magazine that the Chinese leader had called him. However, Trump refused to comment if he had spoken to Xi Jinping after the tariffs were implemented.
You said you spoke with President Xi. Have you spoken to him since the tariffs? When did you last speak with him?
I don't want to comment on that, but I've spoken to him many times.
Chinese fast fashion giant Shein has hiked its US prices for US customers ahead of the 2nd of May, when its decades-old rule that allowed imports under $800 to skip duties comes to an end. As per Bloomberg, the price increases, which are as high as 377%, began on the 25th of April. The average price for top 100 products in beauty and health category have risen by 51%. The average jump in the product prices was more than 30%, with many doubling in price. Back home, M&M has expanded its commercial vehicle portfolio. The automaker will acquire 59% stake in SML Isuzu for 555 crore rupees. M&M shares gained 2% following the announcement, while shares of SML Isuzu slumped nearly 10%. Sudarshan Kumar is here with more on the details.
M&M is high in today's trade, and SML Isuzu, if you see, it's down more than 10%, or currently down 10% trade. And the reason, M&M has announced acquisition and also is going to make the open offer, and open offer price is at a 12% discount to Friday's closing price. So M&M is going to acquire nearly 44% stake from promoter, that is Sumitomo Corporation, and 15% stake from public shareholder, that is Isuzu Motors. And this total stake would worth rupees 555 crore, or say 59% stake. And apart from this, M&M is also going to come out with an open offer to acquire additional 26% stake, and for this price is fixed at rupees 1555 per share. This is an all-cash deal, and deal is expected to be completed by December 2025. So what was the objective of M&M going ahead and acquiring SML Isuzu? To expand its truck and commercial vehicle business. So in the segment of more than 3.5-ton commercial vehicle, currently M&M's market share is 3%. Post the acquisition of SML Isuzu, its market share will increase to 6%, and by FY31, it's targeting the market share to increase to in the range of 10 to 12%, and by FY36, market share should increase to more than 20%. So this was the objective. And in the last 3 years also, SML Isuzu's turnover has increased from more than rupees 900 crore to currently around rupees 2200 crore. So overall, it's very positive for M&M, and that's the reason stock is higher. But considering the open offer price, a discount of 12% to Friday's closing price, you are seeing a sharp downtick in SML Isuzu. Also, till Friday, SML Isuzu was almost 26% higher in 2025.
Right, thank you, Sudarshan, for that. Staying with the stake acquisition, Mahindra Group CEO and MD Anish Shah said that SML Isuzu will continue as a listed entity even after the deal is completed. Speaking with CNBC TV 18's Shireen Bhan, he added that the acquisition is based on fair valuation for all entities.
I would just say that it's a fair valuation for all concerned. And for us, we've always followed a very structured process in terms of focusing on certain businesses, investing where it makes sense. And it made sense for us to invest at this value because we feel that from here we can grow the business and deliver returns for our shareholders, which is a very important aspect in how we look at this. And therefore, a blended value is what we really saw. That's what we're finally investing. And on that basis, we feel that it's a fair and appealing deal, which has a very good strategic fit as well. We feel that it is important for this to stay as a listed entity and be able to compete in its segment effectively.
Maruti Suzuki chairman R.C. Bhargava said in the company's earnings call that 88% of Indian households cannot afford to buy even a small car. Speaking to CNBC TV 18, Bhargava blamed regulatory measures and rising commodity costs for the sharp increase in car prices in the last 5 years.
The demand has been falling for the last many years. If you look at the small car market, or let me go beyond that. If you look at the household income distribution in India, 200 million out of 300 million households are below 5 lakhs in income. The people in this lower income households, and they comprise the bulk of the Indians, were suddenly faced with sharply rising costs of small cars, largely because of regulatory requirements and the cost of meeting those requirements, partly because of commodity prices and other things. But overall, the prices have gone up very sharply. And so they have dropped out of the market.
The newly imposed US tariffs on automobiles and auto parts could impact the revenue of Indian auto component exporters by 2,700 to 4,500 crore rupees, according to a report by ratings agency ICRA. Exports to the US are expected to decline by mid to high single digits in FY26. The study also estimates that new tariffs could add around 9,000 crore rupees in incremental costs across the supply chain. The tariff war between the US and China could pose a significant challenge for electric vehicle makers across the world, including India. Now, China is planning to ban the export of rare earth magnets, which are crucial to EVs. Speaking with Lata Venkatesh, Bajaj Auto's chairman Rajiv Bajaj warned the industry will come to a grinding halt if China bans the export of these magnets.
As of yesterday, I still have to verify this, but I was given to believe that suddenly China has decided not to permit the export of heavy rare earth magnets, which are used in motors of electric vehicles. And as you know, that for some of these EV components, the whole supply chain of the world resides in China.
Exactly.
So if this is true, we are still trying to come to terms with the facts, all the facts. But if this is true, it would mean that, and if it doesn't change, then in a matter of weeks, the entire Indian EV industry will grind to a halt.
All right, in earnings corner, shares of TVS Motor ended over 2% higher after its fourth quarter earnings beat estimates on all parameters. Net profit jumped by 75% on a yearly basis to 852 crore rupees, while revenue also saw double-digit growth. TVS Motor posted EBITDA of 1,330 crore rupees and a margin of 14%. Both were much higher than what the street anticipated. Ultratech Cement delivered a largely in-line performance in the fourth quarter. Net profit was marginally below estimates despite growing 10% compared to last year. Revenue also fell short of expectations, growing 13% year-on-year. Margins, which stood at 20%, were in line with estimates. The company recommended a dividend of 77.5 rupees a share. Well, India is likely to allow Chinese firms to invest under the electronics component PLI. However, according to sources, this can be done only through joint ventures with Indian firms. That's not all. In all cases, the management and control of the JV will have to remain with the Indian entity. Ashmit Kumar is here with the details. Ashmit, what are you picking up?
Well, an important decision this as far as the electronics component PLI is concerned. Bear in mind that a large part of the global value chain rests in China. Therefore, a long-term decision being taken by the government that, yes, Chinese entities will be allowed to partake as a part of this electronics component PLI scheme, but it is subject to a number of riders. Number one, the first rider is that these Chinese entities cannot come by themselves. They necessarily have to come in. The only route possible is through a joint venture or a JV route, and that JV has to be done with an Indian entity. Number one. Number two, the management and control of this joint venture will necessarily have to rest with the Indian entity. So the Indian entity will need to have a 51% shareholding or higher. What the government is thinking about is that for certain critical components, it will be willing to allow a Chinese shareholding of 49%, but for other components, the shareholding of the Chinese entity will be capped at about 26% or 10%. These are various slabs depending on the criticality and the sensitivity of the component at hand. Number three, with respect to as far as transfer of technology is concerned, the government is very clear that any such JV that will be sailing through for the PLI scheme will happen only and only if there's a transfer of technology clause. The government wants the technology to flow from the Chinese companies to the Indian counterparts. And fourthly and finally, only because there is compliance with these three aspects does not translate into an automatic approval. The government is quite clear that any FDI that's coming in via these Chinese entities will be subject to heavy scrutiny. The approval, if any, the discretion will lie completely with the government. The approval, if any, if it comes, will be happening under the press note 3 that was issued by the DPIIT. So clearly the government taking a longer term view, willing to allow the Chinese entities to come on board the PLI scheme, but subject to heavy scrutiny by the centre.
Right, thank you, Ashmit, for that. India has signed a 63,000 crore rupee deal to buy 26 Rafale M fighter jets from France. The agreement includes 22 single-seater Rafale M jets and 4 twin-seater trainers. Deliveries will begin in a few years and are expected to be completed by 2031. The Rafale M jets will operate from INS Vikrant and INS Vikramaditya, replacing the MiG-29K fleet. All right, it's time for a short break. Coming up next, Maharashtra's Chief Minister Devendra Fadnavis promises a bullet train by 2028, staying firm on the target. More details when we return. The Mumbai-Ahmedabad bullet train project will be completed by 2028. That's the word coming in from Maharashtra Chief Minister Devendra Fadnavis. In a chat with Shireen Bhan at the India Middle East Europe Economic Corridor Summit, Fadnavis revealed that the Vadhvam port in Palghar district will be functional in 3 to 4 years. He also said that Maharashtra will be at the forefront to welcome Elon Musk and Tesla.
Bullet train will bring you to BKC in 20-25 minutes, and this road will bring you to Mumbai in 40-45 minutes.
The question is, when will it bring us to BKC in 45 minutes?
See, that is also not very far, because, you see, unfortunately, sometimes politics is very cruel, and between 2020 and 2022, when there was some other government in Maharashtra, they actually literally scrapped the bullet train. But once we took over again, we started it afresh. And today I can tell you that every bit of work of bullet train is being taken up, and it's happening at a great pace. So let's say that by 2028, we'll be able to travel in the bullet train. Vadhvan is a game changer port. And you see, today, the biggest port of India is the JNPT port. It accounts for 60 to 65% of the container traffic. And this Vadhvan port is 3 times bigger than JNPT. That will make, this port-led development expand to 17 districts of Maharashtra. Next 3 to 4 years, we'll start the operations of Vadhvan.
Is Maharashtra going to be part of Elon Musk's plan for India?
That only Elon Musk can tell, but I hope we should be, and we'll always try, we'll always compete, we'll always be, at forefront to welcome them.
Your colleagues in the state of Andhra Pradesh are virtually giving away land for free. 99 paise, is what the deal has been done with TCS. Are you worried about things like that? Do you see those things as an opportunity?
No, I'm not worried, because Andhra Pradesh can have anything, but they cannot have Mumbai and Pune. You see, ultimately you need to have Mumbai. Mumbai is Mumbai. You cannot compete with Mumbai.
The Supreme Court has agreed to hear pleas seeking regulation of so-called obscene content on OTT platforms and social media. The government has said that content on some of the OTT platforms is not just obscene, but perverse. The Apex Court has issued notices to the centre along with Netflix, Amazon, Google, Meta, Apple, among others. India's industrial output grew by 3% in March compared to the same month last year. The rate of expansion is faster than February and was led by higher electricity generation and higher production of consumer durables and infra-related products. The government has set up an inter-ministerial committee to frame broad contours of national manufacturing mission. Sources tell CNBC TV 18 that the committee headed by Niti Aayog CEO BVR Subramaniam will look at the mission's framework. Abhimanyu Sharma is here with more. Abhimanyu.
Till the National Manufacturing Mission, it was announced in this year's union budget by the finance minister, and the government is looking to increase the share of manufacturing as the share of the GDP from around 16 to 17% in the coming years. And as part of this itself, the stakeholder consultation is already underway with several domestic industry participants and several states. And what we understand now, that what government sources have indicated, that an interministerial committee has been set up to frame the broad contours of the National Manufacturing Mission, and also the mission aims to promote the Make in India initiative and is going to cover small, medium and large industries. It's also going to cover 5 focus areas particularly, which will include ease and cost of doing business, a future-ready workforce for in-demand jobs, a vibrant MSME sector, availability of technology and quality products. It remains to be seen how early the stakeholder consultation would be completed and how early the contours would be finalized based on on which a broader policy would come out in the public domain, which would involve responsibilities of respective line ministries in the central government and also responsibilities for states. Also, several PLI schemes which already exist for domestic industry participants, they also may be factored in as part of the entire national manufacturing mission, speaking of the broad framework which is currently being looked at by the committee.
Right, thank you, Abhimanyu, for that. In international headlines, Yemen's Houthi rebels have alleged that a U.S. airstrike killed 68 people in a prison holding African detainees. As per Yemen's Interior Ministry, the detention center was housing 115 African migrants. The attack came hours after the U.S. military revealed that its forces had hit more than 800 targets in Yemen since an air campaign began 6 weeks ago. Israel's attacks in Gaza have killed at least 50 people in the last 24 hours. Intense bombardment was reported across the territory. This comes as Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu dismissed the idea of establishing a Palestinian state. The Israeli leader said that it was folly to think the proposal would bring peace. Meanwhile, Israel also carried out an airstrike in Lebanon's Beirut. The country's military said that it targeted a Hezbollah missile storage facility. The group has dismissed Tel Aviv's claim. Donald Trump has recorded the lowest 100-day approval rating of any U.S. president in the past 80 years. A Washington Post ABC News Ipsos poll found that only 39% of American adults approve of Trump's handling of the presidency, while surveys by CNN and NBC found that 41% and 45% American adults support Trump's policy. One of the polls also found that 3/4 of Americans believe Trump's economic policies are likely to trigger a recession in the near future. A 31-year-old man has been charged with second-degree murder after driving into a crowd at a street festival in Canada's Vancouver. The attack killed at least 11 people, including a 5-year-old girl. Police confirmed that terrorism has been ruled out because of the suspect's history of mental health issues. Officials have said that more charges are expected soon. Canadians will cast their ballots today to elect the country's next Prime Minister. Incumbent Mark Carney called the election in March shortly after taking over from Justin Trudeau. His main opponent in the race is Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre. The Conservatives appeared certain to win any contest by a landslide at the start of the year. However, final polls suggest the Liberals are slightly ahead. US President Trump's tariff war and his barbs about making Canada USA's 51st date have emerged as key election issues. And with that, it's a wrap on this edition of Business 360. More news and updates continue right here on CNBC TV 18.